Hello and welcome to my podcast. Do me a favor, subscribe to the John Keim Report wherever you get your podcast. You're watching on YouTube. Like button, subscribe button, you know the deal. You can find us there as part of Ampire Media. That's Ampire. Always much appreciated when you tune in. And don't forget, you can always read my work on ESPN.com. And if you want to become a club member, go to the Ampire Media YouTube page, see the word join, click on there, and go from there. I've met a couple of you club members out at practice. Really appreciate it. Always enjoy meeting anybody. I enjoy meeting anybody, but you club members really appreciate it. So good to see a few of you out at practice. Shout out Jacob, and so there are a few other guys that I've talked to that have been out there, and I appreciate you saying hello. Always do that. So anyway, there you go. Also on Thursday, I'm going to be doing a live stream after practice to wrap up the day, but also to get some of your questions. Hopefully you guys can join me at 2:00 Eastern time. Going to be doing that live from the Commander's facility and get some questions, get some good stuff from you, and I'll share my notes from the day, and then you can ask whatever you want. They are off from practice on Wednesday, so they'll be back on Thursday. I would expect it to be in full pads. Today was only in shells, so they had pads one day, shells the next, day off. I would assume they ramp up with more pads on Thursday, but we'll see. So, and we'll see. And also on Wednesday, I'll be having a conversation with Bram Weinstein, the voice of the Commanders, and we're going to just kind of wrap up the first week and a half of training camp. And since it's a day off, but I want to keep this podcast going. And then also for you club members, tentatively scheduled another private Zoom session for the Gold members on Friday about 6:00. But stay tuned for that one because one or two things might change. But right now, tentatively 6:00 Friday for Gold members, 2 p.m. live stream for anybody who wants to join. Bring your questions, concerns, whatever you want. So anyway, let's get to the practice because today was a pretty good one, even though there were no pads. And also there were fans here, but it was open to some season ticket holders and then some sponsors, etc. Josh Harris was here. Mitch Rails was here. I think Bob Myers was here. Those guys stood on the other sidelines talking to Adam Peters. And so there you go. Just interesting. But anyways, they were in shells, but it was a good day for the offense. And let's talk about that. Some long pass plays, some big plays. And Jahan Dotson said later that he was talking to Emmanuel Forbes, I don't know if it was a day or two ago or earlier in the day, about how, the first few days are kind of tailored toward the defense because the offense is doing a lot of install work. And then after a week or so of that, you start to ramp up the what you can do on offense. And that means getting the ball down the field. And they were putting them in situations today, Dan Quinn was, and this is one thing, he really likes the competitive situations. We've seen that. And he likes to have some non-scripted sessions. But today there was, at one point there was 50 seconds left and they're down 4, you got to get a touchdown. Or there's, 50 seconds left, you're down 2 and you have to go drive further, maybe 60 some yards to get to score or get into field goal range, whatever. So a lot of situations like that. NFL is situational football, so the more you practice, the better you become, the better a team you will be. So let's start, though, with Jayden Daniels because he had a good day. Some really nice connections out there with Jahan Dotson, with Terry McLaurin. Looked good. And there were the things that stand out is just the accuracy down the field and the ability to extend plays and just the poise when he extends the plays, when he's in the pocket and pressure. It's not just because he's in practice. You saw this on film at LSU, and it continued here. But it's also, I think, there's accuracy, there's poise, there's patience. And when you're turning the corner, there's getting your hips around on the throw to make sure it's a more accurate throw, etc. Jahan Dotson said that he was talking to Terry McLaurin on the sidelines, and I want to make sure I get this quote right. He just said that Dotson fits the ball in places, he fits the ball in spaces where with him anything is possible. So that's what the receivers are talking about when they're on the sidelines away from Daniels. And so I think there's some definite excitement about what he and they can eventually do. It does take time. I'm telling you, this offense, there's a lot of new parts, a lot of new faces, and you have a rookie quarterback, a new coordinator here. So it does take time, but I think there's reason for these guys to feel pretty good or feel excited about where it can get to, more so than where it's at now, because where it's at now, it's in the beginning stages. It shouldn't be highly advanced at this point. If it is, it's That'd be unbelievable. But it's where can it get to? I think that's what's getting them excited. So we saw that with Daniels today. He had one nice deep throw down the field to McLaurin, connected later on and I'm going to get to this in a minute, but on a deep back shoulder. And that's one of the plays that got McLaurin excited. After one of the plays, he goes over and slaps hands with Daniels. They sat there and talked on the sidelines for a minute or so. But those are the kind of plays that get them excited because for McLaurin, like that back shoulder, he was begging for more of that last year and for the last couple of years. So for him to get that right now and to see where it can get to, I think that's why that guy's been pumped up because he was pumped up after the one catch. He was pumped up after some other plays. He's been pumped up at other times during the practice from the spring and to now. So I think the reason is he feels pretty good about what they have and what they can get to. But yeah, there are a couple other really good throws that he have, and I want to make sure I'm looking at my notes so I get it right. Showed, again, patience, poise on a rollout, had a back shoulder to Olamide Zaccheaus, just a nice throw. And what I liked about Zaccheaus did is he gave him enough room on the sidelines to whether you can put it down the field and get over, reach out or back shoulder. He went back shoulder. It was a good throw, good catch. But again, he gave him room to make the throw, and I think that was pretty good too. And again, back shoulder 7 to McLaurin. Another time, he extends the play. And there's some pressure from Frankie Louvu up the middle. He gets the ball, it doesn't succumb to the pressure, gets extended a little bit, gets it to Zach Ertz over the middle, picks it up. And then, again, deep ball to McLaurin, who beat Emmanuel Forbes down the side. Not bad coverage, but just a good play. McLaurin is a good receiver. He's hard to cover deep. He gets open on that play, and then Daniels hits him with the throw. I think there's a mindset, too, that will be different than last year. I think, we thought Howell would get the ball down the field more last year. Right? And I think there were times where for whatever reason, the offense wasn't comfortable doing that. And I know McLaurin has always been, hey, if I'm just give me a chance. I think this guy's going to give him a chance for sure. And then they have a fourth down play in one of the drills, and it was Daniels has to scramble to his right a little bit, steps up between a couple of defenders, kind of stumbles, but keeps his balance and bounces back up. And then Jahan breaks out toward the sideline and just a really nice ball that dots it on the sideline. And again, this is where the Daniels part really excels with getting his shoulders around, his hips around. You saw that in college. It's one of the things that I always notice when the guy turns a corner. Is he square into the line? Is he getting his hips around? And Daniels certainly did that. So really good hips getting around. And then, the other one too was, this is in the drill where they had 50 seconds left. They're at the 35-yard line. They're down by 4, 28-24. That's what it says on the score. So on the play, you have a 1-by-3. So McLaurin's on the left, and you have running back, and there was, can't remember there were 3 receivers on the right. Running back was out to the right. Dodson was on the inside. So he's considered the number 3 receiver on that side. He's on the inside. So they fake the screen to the running back. Dotson sells the block. So the defense bites up. He sneaks out and just kind of goes up the seam and kind of angles out. Really nice throw from Daniels, about 25 yards down to about the 10-yard line. Just good fakes, good sell job, nice play, and nice throw. I think they would take a little bit more of that. I think they'd be very happy with that kind of stuff throughout the season. And then last one on fourth and on that same series. So again, they're down by 4. There's very little time left on the clock. I think there's like 4 seconds left. It's fourth down. I'm going to call it like 4th and 9, a long 9, just inside the 10-yard line. They can get a first down at the 1. You don't want it. You don't have time. So he connects to Zach Ertz. What were we talking about yesterday? Zach Ertz in the red zone. Just a nice route. Just gets open in the middle. Sometimes it's really hard to tell exactly what he did to get open because you can't watch everybody. And this is where it gets hard. You can try to watch the whole play. Sometimes you try to watch the whole play, you don't see a lot. So sometimes you focus on a side where you think it might get to. But it makes sense that when Quinn says Zach Ertz is really good in the red zone, then you get a 4th down and 9 in that kind of situation. Who else are you going to go to? Zach Ertz. That's what he did. Good throw, touchdown. Ertz takes the ball and kicks it up, punts it up really high out of the end zone. The officials are here through a flag. But it was funny because they were all kind of jumping around as if they had won the game, but in a very simulated jumping around way. It wasn't like this true huge celebration. It was a yay, that kind of thing. But it was fun. And he got a flag for the kick, but you know what? They would have won the game. So I don't think they care. And then also had Mariota with had a couple nice throws, but one was a deep ball to Brycen Tremayne. Makes a really nice diving catch down the left side. Tremayne's going to be interesting to watch. He did have a drop earlier in the day, but on this one, really nice diving catch. I've told you Mitchell Tinsley's had a couple nice catches as well. I think special teams will be a big thing for those two. I'm going to get into that in a minute because it was something that I was watching some of that, just some special teams drills that I think are important for guys who are on that bubble to see what can they do, what are the coaches saying. I think that really tells you a lot. And I think Sam Hartman looked when he was in there, he had a couple nice throws, got a couple connections to Dax Milne, looked a little bit more comfortable and started to make some plays with his legs, extending the play, getting the ball to Milne. He doesn't get a lot of reps. I told you that. After practice, he worked on some reps and thrown to some really, really short receivers. In fact, it was to be to Pritchard's kids out on the field after practice for a few minutes. So kind of a thrill for them, but they're small. They're not quite ready. The 3-cone drill is still a little bit off. So a little bit of time for Pritchard's sons to grow up and get out there. Johnny Newton was back and doing a little bit more. He's been back, but he did more, and they're going to start ramping him more. He did not work in the full team stuff, but he's doing more and more on the group and individual drills. So that's a good sign for them. He feels really good. And so it's only a matter of time before he gets back out there doing everything everybody else is doing. The good thing for him is he has been out there and he has been doing stuff. So it's not as if he's falling really far behind. The spring hurts, but if he had missed this time, it would have been really tough for him to recover and be ready for the start of the season. But he feels really good. And he did say, because there was a lot of questions about with that foot, when it happened, how it happened. Well, he said he went in to get an update on his right foot, which he had the surgery on, and doing so, they took x-rays of both feet. Well, in doing that, they discovered the same issue in the left foot. He said it wasn't bothering him. It wasn't anything he knew about. Nobody else knew about it. I mean, it's not like they drafted a guy they felt that everybody knew was hurt. That's not the case. So, but he said that's when they found out and they decided to do the surgery right away. He knew what we faced. He knew what he faced because of it, because he had just done it. And then the other thing he said, it's better to have it happen now or then than if it had happened, if they discovered it like right before training camp, because then you're going to miss training camp for sure. And by that point, you're going to put yourself really far behind for the season. So that was a good time. If it's going to happen, if you're going to discover it, that was a good time to discover it for sure. Dude's quick. When you watch him off the ball, he's quick. So I'm really curious to see when he's in there against guys in pads and stuff, how that looks for him, because he's quick. One of the things that we talked to Jahan Dotson after practice, and one of the things he said was he just feels more comfortable in his third year as a pro. And I think first of all, he really likes this offense, feels he's going to be moved around a lot more than he was in the past. And I talked about a little bit about that in the spring. And Bobby Ingram talked about that, I think, a little bit when I had him on an interview on the podcast in June, I think it was. But, I think he feels really good about that. He's got to be a little bit more consistent with the hands. The funny thing is his drop rate wasn't much different than it was his rookie year. It's just that you expect more from him. It was between that 6.5% and 7% mark. You got to get it lower, or you've got to be more productive when you're getting it, or get more catches, right? But the other thing that he feels good about, and you've seen it a little bit, is that getting the ball in space. We heard that a ton last year. That's what this offense is going to do: get guys the ball in space. Well, it rarely happened, and especially rarely happened for him. As a rookie, I felt like they did a good job with that. In fact, on yards per pass attempt to him was like over 14. Last year, it was under 10, I believe. So that's a difference. You need to get that guy the ball in areas where he can create, because he can do that. You turn an open field, that's a good situation for him. But he's got to do better, being more consistent catching the ball. And like I told you before, I think also getting off the line. There was another play that he had with Mike Samerstill, and Samerstill covers him a lot. This was a play where Daniels extends to the right, and he tries to get to Dotson at the goal line, kind of running the whip route. The other day, he gets Samerstill on that. Now, I think Samerstill may have prevented him from getting in the end zone. This time, Samerstill is all over him, knocks the ball away. Good job by the rookie corner and to defend that play. So Brandon Coleman more at left tackle today. A lot of a lot of emphasis by the defense on hustling to the ball and trying to punch the ball out. Saw it twice today, resulting in the ball coming out. Now, one time it was like 30-some yards down the field. You still got to go try it, right? You still got to protect the ball from and prevent people from doing that. Frankie Luvu did it, got Zach Ertz on one of them. By the way, that dude Luvu is fast, and he plays fast. And that's the best thing is it's not just that he's fast, he plays fast, and he plays with some power. So I think he's going to be a fun one to watch. And, we'll see. Austin Eckler, saw him with nice little quick hips on one move, juked the guy in space. Ricky Stromberg was working some as the center with the number 2 group. Michael Dieter was working as a guard in that situation. For the most part, Dieter has been the number 2 center. Stromberg has been the number 3 center. Stromberg, I have not seen him at guard. If you're going to be a backup center, you better be able to play another position because it really makes it difficult to keep somebody if you don't. So I'll be curious to see what they do with him and do they try him at guard at all? If not, does he ascend as a center? I don't know. And because I think the hard part to know with them, I had Charles Leno on in the spring, and if you heard that, he was very high. He and the room were very high on Stromberg. However, I don't know what the impact of that leg injury was because it was not a good injury, right? So I think what's the impact on that? Not he's clearly out here. He's able to be out here, but not impact on his game coming off that injury. So stay tuned for that for the joint practices and then the preseason game. Jayden Daniels, told you I've only seen him at guard. I know he had taken a couple reps at tackle, but I had only seen him at guard. Well, today he was at tackle. He was a lot at left tackle, and I think he's a better guard. So there you go. Fedarian Mathis worked with the 2s. Did see him have one time still looked like a good quick pressure. I think it was against Stromberg, but it's one of those ones where you have to watch the play again because Stromberg let him get that way to kind of influence him, or did he beat him? That's always sometimes a hard thing to know. Did see him get double teamed and driven out on another play, but see where he goes. But anyways, let's watch him a couple times. This is where I was getting into. Watch some special teams work. So they do some drills, and I think that can be very telling because you get a sense of how they feel about some guys, or just watching how they react to some guys and what those guys do. So on this one, you start with the drill is you have a blocker, and then you have a guy as if you're blocking to if Tressway's behind me and I'm the blocker at the end of the line and blocking him, got a guy opposite me, and that guy's going to release trying to get downfield, so you're trying to block him that way too. So there's a few different aspects of that drill. John Bates against Cole Turner, kind of a mismatch. Bates does a nice job just kind of blocking onto him when Turner tries to discard him. Bates eventually gets him down to the ground, just kind of. And I think Turner lost his feet a little bit, but Bates certainly was not going to get. He was not going to get free from Bates or discard Bates. Bates took care of him. Really liked how Tinsley. This is where I talk about Tinsley against Luke McCaffrey. Gets his hands on him. Was really good with that. McCaffrey could not get off him with that. Good job by Tinsley. Jordan McGee and Ben Sinnott both kind of did the same thing to one another. Sinnott discards him earlier. It was the opposite. So I think they both showed a little bit that, but they did the same thing. And then I thought Tremayne did a nice job too going against linebackers. So those guys kind of jumped out a little bit to me. And the group I watched, it was not everybody. It was just that particular group that I watched. But I think it can be very telling. And then also pay attention to who is out there first on special teams in any of these games, because that's where you start. Like, who do they like? Who do they want to see? Doesn't mean they're making it, but who do they want to see first? So, and I told you, Luvu plays fast. Now you had to Jamin Davis worked more at defensive end. I'll be curious to see how long this continues and when they get him back as linebacker, or at least get him some linebacker reps. Do they see him in both roles or not? And if not, what does that mean for his future? Is he progressing at all as a defensive end? They wanted to give him more than 1 or 2 days. It's really hard to say that he's, like, oh, he's starting to stand out. You can't say that. And he's working more often than not to get with a third group and against third group. One thing he did do today was he had a nice little stunt to the inside where you could see the speed and like, okay, that's a guy that could help pressure it. And I think one of the quarterbacks, I don't know if it was Hartman, tries to extend the play to the right, and Davis comes over and would have taken care of the play, probably a sack. And you heard some coaches yelling for him on that one. So that's what you can see. But that one became an instinctual thing. And it's also, he was in those situations as a linebacker, like you're lining up on the edge. Not like he always just stood over the middle and did that. He would line up on the edge too. And so sometimes you'd run some of those games with him off the edge and he'd end up in a situation like that. But that's when he was at his best, when he can use his speed and running versus trying to get around guys. Like I watched him try and get, I think it was around Daniels. And he's not getting his, he doesn't have those, I don't know, I'm sure he's got those kind of hips to turn the corner like that. So didn't quite go that well. So I think he'd have a lot of work to do there. But I think as a stand-up linebacker, using him in some various areas, like maybe blitzing, maybe doing some other stuff, that it could help a little bit. So we'll see where that goes. Yeah, and I told you what they said about. I told you what Terry and Dotson said about about Jayden Daniels. Don't need to repeat that. I had it in my notes again. Anyways, we talked to Johnny Newton, and he does like to go by Johnny, by the way. So he did say one of the things that he really, really likes that guys like John Allen, John Payne, considers them his brothers, right? And he's got his lockers right next to John Allen's. Good move. Said I think he's a smart move. He really looks up to John Allen, and John Allen has been very helpful and open with him, trying to help him. So that's a good situation. Newton feels really good about that situation for himself. Dan Quinn, we always talk to him before practice. So one of the things he was asked about, like the pads, anything that jumped out, and one of the things he really liked was John Bates's blocking. And so, which is no surprise because that's what he does, right? That's his strength. He also, in the return game, mentioned Mike Samerstill and Kaz Allen. Now, Kaz Allen would be interesting if he shows a consistent ability to catch, then it makes it easier to give him a roster spot. But if you're too inconsistent there, then it's hard to keep him in that area. He does have good quickness, and that's why he's a guy like you want to give him as many opportunities as you can to see, do you have something there or not? Because if you do, he can really help you. But Samerstill, I told you yesterday, I like him there. I also like Eckler there. The question would be, how much would they use Eckler there if he's serving as a third down back plus a little bit more? So the other thing that Quinn did is he showed a clip of something Roger Federer talked about at the commencement. I saw this clip the other day too as well. It's Federer talking about how this is a guy that won 80% of his matches. But the one thing he said this commencement address was, but he only won 54% of his points. That's not a lot. So again, the whole thing is it speaks to how much you have to keep pushing, and whether it's resiliency or toughness, whatever. But it's not like he won an all-time great, maybe the greatest ever, but he still only won 54% of his points. It just shows you maybe the mindset you have to play with as well. Whether it's in the NFL, you're not going to win every snap. So do you win more of them? Do you win 54% of your snaps? If you do, you're going to be a pretty damn good player. So anyway, we're going to close on that. That's it for me. Again, Wednesday they're off, but I'll be back with Bram Weinstein on Wednesday morning, talking about the first week and a half of training camp and looking ahead a little bit. And then I'm going to be doing the live stream show 2:00 Thursday. Let's chat then. Thanks for tuning in as always. And as always, I'll talk to you next time.